You ever had one of those moments that just cuts your life clean in half? Like everything before it is one version of you, naive, soft, maybe even stupid, and everything after is someone you never planned on becoming? Yeah. That moment came for me on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of a budget meeting at work, coffee in one hand, half listening to Dave from accounting drone on about quarterly projections, when my phone buzzed. Not a text. A call. From a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail at first. Figured if it was important, they'd leave a message. They did. But before I could even open it, the phone rang again. Same number. That's when you know something's off. Gut level wrong. I stepped out into the hallway, already feeling the kind of dread that crawls under your ribs. Answered the call. It was the hospital. There'd been an accident. My wife, Emily, and our daughter, Sophie, had been hit by a truck on the highway. Coming back from school. Rear-ended at full speed by some idiot texting behind the wheel. They were alive. But critical. I don't remember getting out of the office or down to the parking lot. I just remember the sound my keys made when I dropped them twice before getting into the car. And the voice of the nurse echoing in my head. You need to come right away. I drove like hell. Ran 3 red lights. I'd have flown if I could. Emily and we'd been together since we were barely out of high school. Married young. She was 20, I was 21. People said we were rushing it. They weren't wrong. But somehow, we made it work. 3 years later, Sophie was born. And that little girl, man, she was everything. The glue between us. The reason I got up in the morning. The reason I worked extra hours, said no to trips with the guys, gave up weekends just to see her ride her bike in the park. Emily was my best friend. She was the one who could make me laugh when I was stressed, who knew how to cut through my mood like butter with just one sarcastic line. She was sharp, stubborn, a little chaotic, but mine. And I was hers. No doubts, no cracks. We weren't perfect, of course. Who is? But we were real. And that's what hit me hardest when I pulled up to that ER entrance and saw the nurses waiting. Not the panic, not even the blood on the scrubs of the EMT walking past me. It was the surreal calm of knowing my whole damn world was lying broken somewhere behind those swinging double doors. I gave my name. They rushed me through. Sophie was in pediatric ICU. Internal injuries, broken arm, concussion. But stable. We're optimistic, they said. She's a fighter. Emily, though. She was in surgery. Head trauma. Collapsed lung. Fractures. So many I stopped counting. They'd induced a coma. The surgeon didn't sugarcoat it. It's serious, he said. We're doing everything we can. I nodded, numb. Thanked him. Sat down in that plastic waiting chair that feels like a throne of misery. Time passed. Minutes? Hours? I don't know. I just remember holding Sophie's backpack in my hands, her little unicorn keychain still clipped to the zipper, and thinking, please, let them be okay. I don't care about anything else. Just let them come back to me. That's how the first day went. No answers. Just prayers and waiting. If only I knew what was really coming. I sat in that cold hospital hallway, watching people rush by in scrubs, like they were on fast forward, while I was stuck in slow motion. Every few minutes, I'd stand up, pace, sit back down. My fingers kept reaching for my phone, but there was no one else to call. Everyone that mattered was already in that building. One on an operating table. The other, my daughter, God knows where. Then a nurse approached me. Mr. Reynolds? Yeah. We're stabilizing your daughter. She's lost quite a bit of blood. We may need a transfusion. Would you be willing to donate if your blood type matches? Of course, I said without hesitation. I'm O negative. Universal donor. Run the test. I'll do whatever's needed. She nodded and handed me the form. They took me back to a small room, drew the sample, and told me to wait. 15 minutes later, the nurse came back. She had a chart in her hand and something else on her face. Something off. "We ran your blood type," she said, glancing down. I nodded. "Oh, negative. Like I said?" She hesitated. "Yes, that's what came back. And just to confirm, your wife's blood type." "Oh, negative too," I said. "We both had it checked back when Emily was pregnant." She nodded slowly. "Okay. Then, I'm not sure how to explain this, but your daughter's blood type is AB positive." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. It was just the only thing my brain could come up with. No. That's not possible," I said, waving it off. "If Emily and I are both O, the kid can't be AB. I mean, that's basic biology. High school stuff." She gave me a look. Soft, but solid. "I understand. But I've confirmed the results twice. Your daughter is AB positive." That was it. Like someone pulled the emergency brake on my whole life. I sat there staring at the wall while my mind did backflips, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation. A lab error. A mix-up. Maybe she got the samples wrong. Maybe they mislabeled something. People make mistakes, right? But no matter how many ways I twisted it, the math just didn't add up. If two people with O blood have a child, that child can only be O. Always. That's how it works. You can't pull AB out of that genetic pool. It's not opinion, it's science. And science doesn't care how much you love someone. Science doesn't flinch. I don't remember walking out of that room. I just remember ending up outside on a bench near the ambulance bay, staring at the pavement. There was a ringing in my ears. Not loud, but constant. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo of Emily and Sophie from Sophie's last birthday. Emily was holding the cake, smiling like she hadn't aged a day since college. Sophie had chocolate on her nose and was mid-laugh. I loved them more than anything in the world. And right then, I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. I should have gone back inside, checked on my daughter, checked on my wife. But instead, I sat there, feeling like someone had quietly pulled the rug out from under my whole life while I wasn't looking. Was this real? Had Emily cheated on me? Had she done it back then, when we were barely 3 years into marriage? When we were just starting out? And the part that really made me sick wasn't even the betrayal. It was that this kid, this little girl, I'd loved with every fiber of my being, wasn't mine. And I didn't know what the hell to do with that. You ever feel like you're holding your breath for days? That's what those 2 days were like, waiting for the paternity results. 2 damn days where the walls of the hospital felt like they were caving in. I kept checking my phone, pacing around like some restless ghost. I'd look at Sophie, my little girl, lying in that hospital bed with tubes in her arms and bruises on her face, and I'd feel my stomach twist into knots. And then I'd think, what if she's not mine? God, even just thinking that made me feel like the worst kind of traitor. But the math was what it was. If both Emily and I were O negative, and Sophie's blood was AB, that wasn't a maybe. That was a no. I was trying to keep it together, but my brain wouldn't shut up. I thought about those early days after Sophie was born. How Emily looked at her like she'd found the secret to happiness. How I used to rock her to sleep at 3 a.m., whispering nonsense lullabies just to keep her calm. All those moments, they didn't feel fake. But now they felt like memories someone had handed me with a note that said, by the way, none of this was real. It was late at night, second day of waiting, when I finally caved and picked up Emily's phone. I know. Not exactly noble, but it was sitting right there in her purse, zipped shut like it was hiding something. And my gut was already on fire with doubt, so I went for it. The phone had a password, of course, but I knew it. Same one since we were dating, her old college ID number. She never changed it. That fact alone almost made me laugh. She could have been hiding a second life and still trusted me enough not to lock me out properly. I didn't find anything right away. Texts looked normal. Instagram clean. Nothing obvious. But then I found the Notes app, and something about it felt off. There were these short lines, little one-liners saved at weird times. Stuff like, need to be more careful about notifications. Thursday 5:30, tell him working late. Delete chat, check archive. It wasn't exactly a confession, but it sure as hell wasn't a grocery list either. I scrolled further and noticed something else. There were no texts from anyone named Mark, or Ben, or Alex. Nothing that stood out. But when I went into the deleted messages folder, stuff she thought was gone, I found a few things that didn't sit right. Like a message that just said, "Miss seeing you. Thursday won't work again." And another, "Don't worry, he has no idea. I'll text later," from the app. The app? I started digging. Looked at the installed apps list. She had the usual Facebook, WhatsApp, the weather. But then I noticed one called Vault Safe. I'd never seen her use it. Hell, I didn't even know what it did. I tapped it. Password. Of course. Tried her ID again. No dice. Tried our anniversary. Nothing. After 5 failed tries, it locked me out completely. I sat there staring at the phone like it might suddenly apologize and confess. Like it would just say, "Yeah, she cheated. Here's the whole story. You deserve to know." But all I had were scraps. Clues. Hints wrapped in code and lies. It felt like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces had been deliberately sanded down to not fit. And all the while, Sophie was sleeping down the hall, and Emily was still unconscious. I was alone with a phone, a growing list of suspicions, and a storm brewing in my chest that I couldn't name. And the results? They were due tomorrow. God help me, I didn't want to be right. The envelope came late in the morning. Brown. Unmarked. Just my name and address, sitting there in the mailbox like it didn't hold the power to rip my world in two. I stood with it in my hands for a solid 5 minutes. Just stood there. The front yard was quiet. No wind. No traffic. Like even the damn birds knew something was about to snap inside me. I opened it slowly. My hands were shaking so bad, I nearly ripped the edge off. Inside, 2 sheets of paper. The first one was just the lab info, disclaimers, dates. The second one, black and white, clear as day. Probability of paternity, 0%. 0. Not 99.9. Not 50. Not even 1. 0. I sat on the porch steps like someone had just unplugged me from the wall. You ever feel like gravity suddenly doubles? Like your whole body wants to fall forward, collapse into the dirt? That was me. Just gutted. I thought about Sophie, my little girl, laughing in the back seat, kicking her shoes off at the dinner table, asking me to check for monsters under her bed. I thought about the nights I stayed up with her when she had the flu, the stupid dance routines we did in the kitchen, the first time she called me Dad. And now what? Some ink on a page said it was all a lie. The pain hit me in layers. Confusion first. Then anger. Then a kind of heartbreak I didn't even know existed. I felt like I'd been stabbed in the chest by someone I trusted to guard the knife drawer. I didn't cry. Not yet. That came later. First, I got up, walked back into the house, and went straight for Emily's phone. I wasn't digging for clarity anymore. I was looking for the truth. The kind of ugly truth you don't want to find but need to, just to breathe again. I remembered the Vault Safe app. Locked. No way in. But I'd also found those weird drafts and notes, and it hit me. What if she used the notes as backups? Places to jot things down before sending them? I opened notes again. Looked at recent deletions. And there it was. A string of messages. Fragmented. Disjointed. But all clearly meant for someone else. It was just one time. But it messed everything up. I didn't plan it. We were drunk. I don't even remember all of it. He's a good man. He doesn't deserve this. And one that stopped my heart cold. If he ever finds out about Sophie, it'll destroy him. That was it. That was the moment I knew. Not just suspected. Not just guessed. Knew. I sat there in the kitchen, staring at her words, and for a moment I didn't feel anger. I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped everything out of me and left the skin to figure out what to do next. I should have screamed. Thrown something. Smashed the damn phone. But instead, I just sat in the quiet with those words echoing in my head. Emily cheated. Emily lied. Sophie isn't mine. And yet, I still love both of them. That's the part that broke me the most. After a while, I picked up the envelope again. Read the result one more time. As if the second read might say something different. But no. Probability of paternity, 0%. Black and white. Cold. Final. The truth hurts like hell. But it's better than a lie that hugs you while it stabs you in the back. I closed the envelope. Put it in a drawer I never opened. And then I made a decision. I needed more than pieces. More than scribbled notes and half-deleted messages. I needed the full story. So the next day, I hired a private investigator. She was still unconscious. 2.5 weeks. Tubes. Machines. That awful beeping. I came every day, sat by her bed, watched her chest rise and fall like it meant something. But Emily wasn't in the room. She was somewhere else. Some quiet place I couldn't reach. Sophie was getting better. Slowly. She was awake, talking. I told her Mommy was resting. She nodded and clutched my hand harder. The guilt was unbearable. I'd sit there feeding her soup and wondering if I should even be in the room. Wondering what kind of man plays dad when he's not even in the credits. But love's a strange thing. It doesn't care about DNA. One morning, I got a call from the private investigator. His name was Tom Reardon, mid-50s, sounded like he chewed gravel for breakfast. Former cop, now working solo out of a cluttered little office behind a locksmith shop. I met him at a diner just off the highway. He was already sitting there, black coffee in hand, no sugar. He slid a small manila folder across the table without saying a word. "Just tell me," I said. He looked at me, not with pity. More like a mechanic giving you the straight story on a busted engine. "It wasn't a one-time thing," he said. I didn't react. Not out loud. But my stomach twisted hard. "It started at least 6 years ago," he continued. "A guy named Brian Callahan. Lived 2 towns over. Worked in construction management. They met through a mutual friend at some conference. Based on phone records, they stayed in contact for years." I nodded slowly. "You sure it wasn't just a friendship?" He raised an eyebrow. "Friendships don't usually involve hotel receipts, burner numbers, and messages like 'I wish we could run away together.'" I rubbed my hands over my face. It all felt heavy. Thicker than the air in that damn diner. "How long did it last?" "Hard to say exactly, but looks like it ended abruptly about 2 years ago." I looked up. "Why?" Tom hesitated, then opened the folder again and pulled out a single page. It was an obituary. Brian Callahan died at 38. Drowned in a lake while boating with coworkers. Alcohol involved. A tragic accident. Just like that, he was gone. Tom said. She stopped contacting anyone tied to him after that. No messages. No shady accounts. No more hotels. Whatever it was, ended there. I stared at the obituary like it was a bad punchline to a cruel joke. So that was it. He was real. He was part of her life. A long-term part. The guy who fathered Sophie. And he died before I even knew his name. She's been clean since? I asked. As far as I can tell. Nothing in the last couple of years. She went full ghost. Deleted all her tracks. Even wiped backups on the cloud. Pretty smart for someone not in IT. She's in tech, I said flatly. Game development. He nodded. Explains it. We sat in silence for a while. Tom eventually folded the file closed and slid it back to me. Look, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen all kinds of betrayals. Some end in screaming, some end in reconciliation. But the ones that really break people are the ones they never saw coming. And buddy, you didn't see this coming. I didn't reply. I just paid for the coffee and left. On the drive back to the hospital, I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't make any calls. Just drove in silence with the envelope on the passenger seat, and one hand clenching the wheel hard enough to hurt. My wife had cheated. My daughter wasn't mine. And the man she loved instead had been dead for years. I should have felt anger, rage, but all I felt was empty. When I got back to the hospital, Sophie was asleep. Her small hand curled around a stuffed animal. She looked so peaceful, so unaware. I sat down next to her and exhaled slowly. Whatever came next, I'd face it. But I had to hold it together for her. Sophie kept getting stronger. Her bruises were fading. She smiled more often, laughed at cartoons, started asking about going home. The doctor said we'd take it one day at a time. I didn't tell her about her mother's condition. Not the whole truth. Just that Mommy was sleeping and the doctors were helping her wake up. And that sometimes, waking up takes a while. She nodded like a little soldier. Brave, like her mom. That part was real. Meanwhile, I barely slept. I stayed in the hospital chair, or drove back and forth from home to bring fresh clothes, or just sat in my car staring at the dashboard like it might offer answers. And I kept thinking, over and over, what the hell am I supposed to do now? I loved Emily. God help me, I still loved her. Even after all of it. Even after the affair. Even after knowing Sophie wasn't mine. I kept seeing her in every room. Laughing in the kitchen. Singing in the car. Whispering goodnight. And now she was hooked up to machines, motionless. The same face, just without any life behind it. There's no instruction manual for that kind of grief. No handbook for how to mourn the betrayal of someone who's not even dead. Every day, I'd visit Emily's room after spending the morning with Sophie. I'd sit beside the bed and talk to her. Sometimes just nonsense, how Sophie was doing, what the nurses said, what I cooked that day. Sometimes silence. Other times I'd cry. One day I asked her something out loud. Why didn't you just tell me? No answer, of course. Just the sound of the oxygen pump and heart monitor. And I realized something terrifying. If she never wakes up, I'll never get to ask her anything. I'll never know what she felt. Why she stayed. Whether she regretted it. Whether she loved me. Whether she ever did. All I had was the story the detective gave me. That Emily had loved someone else. For years. That it ended only because he died. So did that mean I was the backup plan? The safe bet? Was our whole marriage built on sand? It made me sick. I hated myself for even thinking it. I hated her for making me think it. But I still came. Every day. One afternoon, after Sophie had finished physical therapy and was back in her room watching some old cartoon rerun, a nurse pulled me aside. "She's stable enough to be discharged soon," she said with a soft smile. "Couple more days. Maybe 3. Then she can go home." I nodded. Managed to thank you. But my heart dropped. Home. With just me. Without Emily? What the hell was that even supposed to look like? But I did what I always do. I nodded, said okay, and made a plan. I set up her room. Bought groceries. Put away every photo in the house that had all 3 of us in it. I couldn't bear to look at them. Then, when the day came, I helped Sophie into the car, buckled her in, and we drove home together. She was so excited. Even though she still walked with a limp and had to take pain meds, she was smiling the whole ride. The house felt different. Quieter. Colder. But she didn't notice. She went straight to her room, pulled out her old stuffed animals, and crashed on the bed in a nest of blankets. I made us soup. We watched a movie. I tucked her in. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept in my own bed. Alone. And I cried again. Quiet, ugly crying. The kind where your throat closes and your chest shakes and nothing feels real. Emily was still in a hospital bed, silent. The woman I loved. The woman who betrayed me. The mother of the child that wasn't mine, and yet was everything to me. About a week after bringing Sophie home, the phone rang. It was the hospital. "She's awake," they said. I didn't say anything right away. I just sat there, phone to my ear, staring at the coffee mug in my hand like it suddenly explained the meaning of life. "She's conscious," the nurse repeated. "Emily's breathing on her own. Responsive. Still weak, of course, but she's awake." I said thank you, hung up, and sat there for maybe 10 minutes in total silence. Then I drove straight to the hospital. The ride felt different this time. Not frantic, not heavy with dread, but not hopeful either. Just tense. Like walking into a room full of answers you don't want to hear. When I saw her, she looked smaller, paler, tired, but her eyes were open. She looked right at me and whispered, "Hey." And I swear, for a second, everything just collapsed. My anger, my heartbreak, my resentment, all of it just gave way to this overwhelming flood of relief. She was alive. Still her. Still here. I sat down next to her, took her hand, and she cried. "I didn't think I'd wake up," she said. "I dreamed I was drowning." I held it together. Barely. She asked about Sophie first. Of course she did. "She's home," I told her. "Doing better every day." And I meant it. Sophie was tough. Stronger than either of us. We talked a bit more. Nothing heavy. Just light stuff. How she felt. What she remembered. She didn't ask too many questions about the accident. Or me. Maybe she was afraid of the answers. So was I. I didn't say a word about what I knew. About Sophie. About the other man. About the blood test. About the hidden messages. Not yet. Honestly, I didn't know if I ever could. It's not that I wanted to protect her. It's that I didn't trust myself to survive the conversation. So instead, I brought her flowers. Read her messages from Sophie. Stayed with her for hours each day while Sophie was at school or with my mom. And slowly, she got better. Not fast. Not like in movies. But she could sit up. Talk more. Eat solid food. She even smiled once, weakly, when I told her about Sophie asking if she could get a puppy now that we were officially a hospital family. I didn't smile back. I didn't have one left in me. Nurses and doctors praised how attentive I was. They said it was beautiful to see a husband so devoted after such a traumatic accident. And I just nodded. Said thank you. But inside, I was splitting in two. One part of me, the part that still loved Emily, sat by her side and held her hand and kissed her forehead. The other part, the one that lay awake at night, that part screamed. That part wanted to shake her awake and yell, "Why did you lie to me for 10 years? Why did you let me believe Sophie was mine?" But I didn't. Because even though I didn't trust her anymore, Sophie still did. And that was worth protecting. So I played the role. The good husband. The strong one. The man she thought I was. And every day I'd leave her hospital room, walk to my car, and sit in silence for 15 minutes before I could drive home. Because I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending. And I had no idea what the hell came next. It was a Thursday night. Late. Maybe past midnight. Sophie was asleep at my mom's place. She loved sleeping over there, mostly because Grandma let her eat cereal for dinner and stay up way too late watching cartoons. I had just started dozing off on the couch when the phone rang. Private number. My stomach dropped. I knew. I knew before I even picked up. "Mr. Carter?" It was the nurse. Her voice was shaking. "You need to come to the hospital. It's your wife. Something's happened." No details. No explanations. Just panic in her voice. I was already grabbing my keys before she finished. I don't even remember the drive. Just the wet roads. The glow of red lights. The sound of my own heart beating out of rhythm. When I got to the hospital, they didn't take me to her room. They took me to the hallway. That's when I knew. 3 doctors, a nurse, and someone I guess was from administration were already waiting. Their faces said everything. They spoke, but honestly, I didn't hear much. Words like complications and cardiac arrest and respiratory failure were thrown around. Then the final one. "We did everything we could." And that was it. That was the end of Emily. I didn't cry right away. I just stood there. The way you'd stand if you suddenly realized the floor had disappeared, but you hadn't started falling yet. When they let me in to see her, she looked exactly the same as when I'd visited the day before. Like she could wake up at any second. But she wouldn't. They said it was a blood clot. Formed somewhere deep, moved up into her lungs, caused a pulmonary embolism. It was sudden. Brutal. Nothing anyone could have done, they said. Right. Except not cheat. Not lie. Not die before telling me why. But I didn't say any of that. I kissed her forehead. Whispered something I don't remember now. And then I went home. Alone. Sophie didn't know. Not yet. The next morning, I went to my mom's and picked her up. She came running into my arms, full of smiles. "I made pancakes with Grandma," she shouted. "And I saved one for you." I took the plate, sat at the table, and somehow, didn't cry in front of her. That afternoon, I sat her down and told her that Mommy had passed away in the night. She cried, sobbed, asked why, asked how, asked if it was her fault. I told her over and over again that it wasn't. And then she asked the one question I knew was coming. "What happens now?" I looked her right in the eyes and said, "You and me, kid. We stick together. Always." She smiled through her tears, wrapped her little arms around me and said, "I love you, Daddy." And I said it back. I meant it. Even if I wasn't. Even if I'd never been. The first few months were a blur. Grief is weird. It doesn't come all at once. It leaks in through the cracks. Quiet moments hit the hardest, like making coffee and realizing no one else is going to drink the second cup ever again. I tried to be strong for Sophie. That little girl had just lost her entire world. Her mom was gone. And me? Well, I was never really hers to begin with. But she didn't know that. And I'd already made a decision. She never would. She was my daughter. Not by blood. Not by biology. But by every scraped knee I kissed, every bedtime story I told, every dumb dance I did in the kitchen just to make her laugh. That's what made me her dad. And nothing was going to change that. So I kept going. We moved out of the old house. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. I found a smaller place, closer to Sophie's school, and closer to my mom. I needed the help, emotionally, practically, all of it. At night, after Sophie went to bed, I'd sometimes sit with Emily's phone. I still had it. I don't know why I couldn't throw it away. Part of me still needed answers, I guess. Some closure that never came. But eventually, I stopped opening it. The pain started to dull. A little. Sophie asked about her mom often. Especially at night. She'd curl up beside me and whisper things like, "Do you think Mommy can see me?" Or, "Would she be proud if I got an A in math?" "Yes," I'd say every time. "She sees you. And she's so proud." And I wasn't lying. Because Emily, for all her flaws, and yeah, she had plenty, loved Sophie. That much, at least, was real. That part wasn't a lie. It was the only part that still gave me peace. There were hard moments. Like the time Sophie had a school project on family trees and asked me what blood type she was. Or when they needed medical records and I had to fudge a few things to keep the truth buried. But I did it. I lied. For her. Because I'd rather carry the weight of that secret for the rest of my life than see her heart broken by something she never asked for. She was a good kid. Grew fast. Smarter than me by the time she hit middle school. Always kind. Always curious. And she never gave me a reason to doubt that I'd made the right call. By the time she was in high school, things felt stable. Not healed. Not whole. But livable. I even started dating again. Carefully. Quietly. And eventually I met someone. Her name was Laura. We met at a local bookstore, of all places. She was standing in the aisle arguing with her teenage son about whether Shakespeare was boring or brilliant. He said boring. She said brilliant. I laughed out loud, couldn't help it. That's how it started. And slowly, and I do mean slowly, we started building something. I wasn't in a rush. Neither was she. She'd been through her own storm. Divorced. Raising a kid on her own. She understood the mess, the silence, the weight that never quite goes away. She never pried about Emily. She asked just enough to be kind, never too much to hurt. A year later, we got married in a small courthouse ceremony. Sophie stood beside me, beaming. And Laura's son, Dylan, gangly, sarcastic, brilliant, rolled his eyes through the whole thing, which somehow made it perfect. Life had changed. Again. But this time, it was quiet change. No explosions. No betrayal. Just two tired people who still believed in the idea of love, even after all that life had thrown at them. Sophie blossomed. She was 16 when Laura came into our lives, and for a while, I worried it might be too much, too fast. But Sophie and Laura bonded over books and bad reality TV, and slowly, without me even noticing, Sophie started calling her Mom. Not Laura. Not Dad's wife. Just Mom. The first time I heard it, I was in the kitchen. Sophie yelled something like, "Mom, do we have any more of that almond milk?" And I just stood there frozen for a second. It didn't feel wrong. It didn't feel like a betrayal to Emily. It felt natural. Right. Like Sophie had found her missing piece. And Laura? She never tried to replace Emily. She just loved Sophie as she was. No expectations. No strings. Just love. A year later, we had a daughter together, Ellie. And when I held that baby girl in my arms, I cried harder than I had in years. Not because I loved her more than Sophie. No, not that. But because I realized I could still love. I still had it in me. That love hadn't died with Emily. Or been buried under all that betrayal. It had just changed shape. Time passed. Sophie grew up. She got accepted into a college out of state. Literature, of course. She cried the day we dropped her off, and so did Laura. I didn't cry, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking the whole drive back. Before she left, she gave me a gift. It was a small frame, with a photo of us from her 7th birthday. She'd written on the back, "To the best dad in the world. You always made me feel safe. Always made me feel loved. I hope I can be as good a parent as you one day." I almost broke right then and there, because she didn't know. She never found out. Not from me. Not from anyone. She still believed that I was her real father. And in every way that mattered, I was. No blood test could undo that. No secret could change it. That girl, the one who used to fall asleep with her hand on my chest, the one who used to cry when I left for work, the one who asked if she could wear my jacket when she was cold, she was mine. And I was hers. I never told Laura either. Not because I didn't trust her. I did. But because it was my burden. My history. Not something that needed to live in our new life. Some things are better left as scars than reopened as wounds. And sometimes, the truth isn't what makes us whole. It's the love we choose, over and over, day by day, that writes the real story. So yeah, my wife cheated. My daughter wasn't mine. My heart was shattered more times than I can count. But I still got a family. I still got to be a dad. I still got to be loved. And if you ask me, that's one hell of a happy ending.